Joseph, thanks for being here with us at the Intel booth at Embedded World.
Yeah, Matthew, it's very good to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Intel's been at the edge for over 40 years. We're a big player in this ecosystem. The edge has continued to evolve over that time. What innovations are you seeing at the edge?
I think it's AI is changing everything, right? And so Edge was primarily a point solution running a single application. It was capturing data and shooting it back, and really that was pretty much it. What we're seeing now is with the proliferation of AI, the edge is becoming, a critical infrastructure for enterprises. Edge is where data is collected. That's where a lot of intelligence can happen. And as a result of this, I think a lot of enterprises are looking at the edge as an investment profile, where in the past, traditionally, it was kind of a one-off, but now they're seeing the value in the edge.
Absolutely. And those systems and solutions for the edge become richer in architecture themselves because they are collecting and processing more data right there, to your point. And AI is a big part of that. How is AI at the edge changing the game?
Well, as I mentioned, it's taking action, right? It's collecting information, thinking about what they're seeing, and doing something with it, right? And so, the edge architecture, it's interesting. Right now, I liken what we're doing with edge as kind of the early days of the internet, right? And so we see some projects coming here and there, right? And so people are taking a shot at what's going on, but what AI affords is actionable things that enterprises can utilize and really kind of grow their portfolio and their services.
Can you talk a little bit about how Lakeside solutions apply here, and maybe a few examples of industries or use cases where those are being applied?
Yeah, so Lakeside has been leader in the IT digital experience monitoring for several decades now. And we're seeing this OT and IT convergence happening. And so effectively, whereas they had siloed approaches, they're seeing these kind of two solutions come together. And as a result of this, the IT folks are taking the know-how around capacity planning, around management of these devices, and applying that to edge devices. So now it's all becoming kind of a first-party offer, right? And it's part of the overall solution. And what we're seeing is, okay, now with edge coming through, as I mentioned with the use cases, there's several that's, quite fascinating, right? And I've been privy to several of these firsthand around manufacturing and what's happening in retail and what's happening with city and local governments. One example that's a little bit close and near to my heart as someone who lives in California is wildfires. So what we're seeing is these edge devices being deployed in the far premises of the forest, and they'll take computers, vision, and they'll inference that information. And so instead of just sending snapshots back to the data center or to the central location, what they're doing is they're identifying things. So they'll identify smoke, and what they'll do is they'll trigger that to other cameras within that forestry, which will then kind of triangulate to see whether this is a hazard or not. They'll trigger authorities, go take a look at it. If they identify that it is a fire, for example, or it could be cause for an incident, they'll trigger other things. Right now, I know that they're looking at drones to go out there and put out the fire as it's containable, because once it's not, you get into some terrible situations.
That's a really compelling use case that's showing how AI is being applied for good in those kinds of scenarios. And there's so many of these use cases. Intel's been an increasing player in this space. We've recently launched our Intel Core Series 2 with P-Cores processor, specifically for industrial manufacturing, where time-coordinated computing and precision is required in industrial manufacturing equipment. We also recently launched our Core Ultra Series 3 processor, codenamed Panther Lake, which has almost twice the AI performance of our previous products. AI that's being used in the sorts of examples like you just mentioned. How does Lakeside think about provisioning of equipment in those situations and managing a fleet of devices?
Yeah, again, the biggest challenge here is I've got this device, it's going to the edge, there's a significant cost to it, more than an enterprise device, because it's going out in the periphery.
Yes.
So the cost of deploying it, the cost of troubleshooting it, the cost of changing, these hardware devices, it's quite expensive. And so they need to look at what the requirements are today, but also in the future. And so what we do is we give them real data information so that enterprises can take a look at that and understand, do I have headroom for this? Are applications, AI applications, are they impacting critical applications, right? Do we need to separate noisy applications from, what the primary applications are, right? So there's no shortage of different use cases and things that they want to do, but we want to make sure that we do it in accordance to performance, security, and of course manageability. And so from Lakeside, we provide that visibility for the enterprise customer to say, okay, look, you've done this in the lab. The lab is not always the same as what you do in production. Here is production. We're collecting just an immense amount of telemetry data, giving the enterprise customers that insight so that as they deploy applications, they can see whether it's behaving as expected.
That's great. And you're right that matters most when you have a large fleet of devices in deployment and they are scattered out in the real world, because the cost of the truck roll to replace or upgrade that device is quite extensive.
Right.
Which is why at Intel, we make sure our edge products have long silicon life availability. You can get them for 10 years.
All right.
We also make sure we have industrial use conditions capabilities. You can run them 24/7. And we even have extended temp SKUs that can run from -40 to 100 degrees Celsius for that lifespan. And so that enables those real world deployments at scale with partners like Lakeside. When you're looking at talking to customers who are just getting started, what are some of the mistakes they might fall into, or what advice would you give them?
What the advice that I would give them is, look, treat your edge devices as a first-class citizen. So from day one, day zero, think about, the strategy, the deployment, the serviceability, just like you would do with a traditional enterprise asset, right? And again, even more so because of the distributed environment of the edges, and sometimes you only have one chance to get it right.
Yes.
Right? And so the advice that we give them is, look, don't think of the edge as a one-off, right? Include it into your strategy and use the IT tools. Use the existing tools that you have to manage and monitor and get that visibility, as well as to help orchestrate kind of the full deployment. Because, when you scale out from 10 to 10,000 devices, that's going to be paramount.
Makes a lot of sense. And as the edge continues to scale, I'm sure there'll be a lot more customers who need the joint capabilities of Intel and Lakeside. So thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure.